In the quiet village of Umukwi, nestled between red clay hills and whispering forests, there lived a young woman named Nonye. She was beautiful in a way that couldn't be bottled. Skin like polished bronze, eyes sharp like a falcon's, and a gaze that held stories even elders dared not guess. But what made Nonye truly unusual was not her beauty, nor her weaving skills, nor even her silence. It was her obsession with feet. While other maidens giggled at muscles and hunting stories, Nonye looked down, always down, at the feet of any man who dared approach her. Whether they wore sandals or walked barefoot, rich or poor, prince or farmer, her gaze dropped to their souls. If their feet were spotless, she turned away. If they were caked in red dust or calloused with life, she looked longer. But still, she never smiled. The village thought she was cursed. Some said her spirit had been stolen by a river god who lived beneath the earth and whispered secrets through footprints. Others claimed she was mad. Suitors came and went, baffled by her one condition: let me see your feet. Her father, Ezudo the basket weaver, begged her to be normal. A good man washes before entering a woman's home, he'd say. But Nonye only replied, a man who fears dust fears the road. One evening, as the crimson sun dipped into the forest's jaw, a traveler passed through the market. He asked for water. Nonye came out, her eyes scanning his face briefly, then his feet. They were thick with dried earth. Her heart thudded once, loud enough to scare the birds. She did not turn away. She whispered to herself, maybe this one. Walked far enough, everyone in Umukwi respected Momon Kota, the village's oldest herbalist and keeper of forbidden tales. Her compound smelled of bitter leaves, smoked tortoise shells, and secrets. Nonye often sat with her in silence, watching the old woman grind herbs or chant to the spirits of the wind. But no one knew that Momon Kota was more than just a healer. To Nonye, she was her grandmother, and the only one who knew the truth behind her strange obsession. When Nonye was barely 7, her mother died under mysterious circumstances. Some whispered that it was poison, others said heartbreak. All Nonye remembered was waking in the middle of the night to her mother's scream, and a trail of clean footprints leading out the door into the dark forest. Not a single speck of dust on them. Her father never spoke of it, but Momon Kota did. That year, when Nonye turned 12, Momon Kota took her to the back of her hut, where an ancient stool stood surrounded by ashes and bones. She lit a fire with no wood, only breath, and said, "Child, there are people whose feet never touch the real earth. They walk, but not like us. Their paths leave no sign, and their hearts hold no root. If you see one, don't follow, and never marry one, no matter how clean they seem." Nonye asked, "How will I know them?" Momon Kota replied, "Their feet will be clean, to clean, as if life never touched them." That day, something broke in Nonye's mind and heart. She made a silent vow. She would only marry a man whose feet bore proof of journey, of pain, of soil. Only Momon Kota knew the vow was more than preference, that it was protection. By the time Nonye turned 20, she had become a legend in Umukwi. Young men came not just from their village, but from neighboring lands. all curious to meet the barefoot bride hunter. Some came with charm, others with pride. A few even tried sorcery, but every single one of them failed. Nonye would smile politely, ask for their name, and then lower her gaze. When her eyes met clean, polished feet, even slightly oiled or freshly washed, her smile vanished like mist at dawn. The elders began to worry. A girl who chooses only dust may one day marry a ghost, they warned. But Nonye didn't flinch. She continued weaving her fine mats and baskets, humming under her breath and watching the village path like a hunter waits for prey. One day, the richest man in the region, Chief Okoli, sent his son, Okena, handsome, tall, and educated. In the white man's city, he arrived in a silk tunic with shoes that sparkled like river stones. The villagers clapped. Mothers whispered prayers. Surely this one would be accepted. He approached Nonye with confidence and grace. She greeted him kindly, then gestured with her usual line. "Please, remove your shoes." Okena laughed and obeyed, sliding off his slippers with flair. His feet were spotless, not a grain of dust, not a crack in sight. Nonye's eyes turned to stone. She stood, bowed her head respectfully, then walked away. The silence that followed was thunderous. That night, as the village gossiped under moonlight, Ezudo sat by the fire, his face heavy with shame. "What does this girl want?" he muttered. But in her room, Nonye held an old cloth in her hand. The last thing her mother ever gave her. It was stained with a single, clean footprint. It started as an ordinary market morning. The air buzzed with haggling voices, the scent of roasted maize and fresh palm oil swirling through the paths. Nonye sat beneath the udala tree, weaving another mat, her eyes drifting to the feet that passed, dry, sweaty, or scrubbed. She barely noticed the children laughing nearby, or the traders calling out discounts. Then, around midday, the skies shifted. Clouds gathered, not dark with rain, but strange, the kind of gray that makes the birds go silent. A low, haunting wind rolled across the village, followed by something truly bizarre. Shoes, sandals, dozens of them, falling from the sky. At first, people thought it was a joke, some trick from the spirit world. The sandals were clean, as if freshly washed, and each pair dropped neatly to the ground like a leaf landing softly. They were of all kinds: leather, rubber, straw, even golden ones no one in the village could afford. People screamed, children scattered, elders crossed themselves. Nonye stood frozen beneath the udala tree as one sandal landed right in front of her feet. White, spotless, and glistening like it had never touched soil. Her heart pounded, not from fear, but from recognition. She had seen that exact design before, on the night her mother screamed. Mama Nkata came hobbling toward her, her face pale, her wrapper flapping in the wind. She grabbed Nonye's hand and hissed, "It has started again. The feet that leave no dust. They are looking for you." Nonye whispered, "Why me?" Mama Nkata's voice trembled. "Because you saw what you were never meant to see. And because of what your mother did before she died." Nonye looked up at the sky. And for the first time, she was afraid. The very next morning, The royal guards arrived at Nonye's compound, their spears gleaming, their brows furrowed with urgency. The villagers watched in stunned silence as the guards announced that Oba Igw of Yumudike, king of 5 villages and keeper of ancient scrolls, had requested an audience with Nonye. Such a thing had never happened before. A king requesting the presence of an unmarried village girl? Mamankata's hands trembled as she packed Nonye's wrapper. "Keep your eyes on his feet," she whispered. No matter what, Nonye was escorted to the palace, her heart thudding. With each step, the compound was a marvel of carved ivory doors and talking drums. At the center of the courtyard stood Oba Igw, tall, majestic, with white beads coiled around his neck like snakes. But what stunned everyone was not his voice or crown. It was his feet. He stood barefoot, calloused, darkened by years of walking, cracks across his soles like road maps. The sight drew murmurs from the courtiers. A king never exposed his feet, not in public. But Oba Igw held Nonye's gaze and smiled. "I have heard of your eyes," he said softly. "Eyes that seek truth where others see skin." Nonye bowed, still silent. Her gaze dropped. His feet were real, dusty, alive. "I walked here from Yumudike," he continued, "because I needed you to know something." He motioned for the guards to step back. "Years ago, your mother was one of my maidens, beautiful, brave, and she discovered a truth so dark, I was forced to erase it. But secrets leave footprints, Nonye." Her eyes widened. "What truth?" she asked. The king's face darkened. "That some of us are not who or what we pretend to be, especially those with clean feet." The king's voice dropped to a whisper, as if afraid the wind might carry his words to the wrong ears. "There is a curse," he said, "passed down from the time before time. It lies beneath the ankles of men who pretend to walk the earth, but do not belong to it." Nonye's breath caught in her throat. King Oba Igw sat on a low stool, his bare feet pressed against the dusty earth. "We call them the Ninchno, the keepers who do not stay. They were once humans, but they sold their earthbound roots for power, longevity, and status. Now, their feet leave no dust, no imprint. The earth rejects them." Nonye's hands trembled as she touched the folded cloth in her lap, the one stained with the clean footprint from her childhood. "My mother," she began. The king nodded. "She found one of them, a suitor with spotless feet, and she fell in love. But when she followed him one night, barefoot through the forest, she saw him walk across the sacred ashes at the ancestors' shrine, without leaving a single mark. A cold silence passed between them. She tried to warn the village," the king said, but the creature silenced her, his kind fear exposure. "That's why they hide in charm, wealth, and perfection, clean feet are their mask." Nonye's voice was barely audible. "And you? I was cursed too," Oba Igw confessed. "But I rejected the bargain. I walked across fire to earn my dust again. Only someone with your sight can finish what your mother began." Mamankata's voice echoed in Nonye's head. "Never marry one who leaves no dust." Now she understood. This wasn't a preference. It was a warning passed down through blood that night. Nonye didn't sleep. The king's words clung to her like wet cloth. She sat outside Maman Kata's hut, staring at the stars, the stained cloth gripped in her hands. Her mother's scream haunted her again. Not just the sound, but the stillness that followed, the emptiness, and the memory of one perfect, untouched footprint on the floor. Maman Kata joined her just before dawn. "It's time," she said softly. They walked in silence to the outskirts of the village, where the shrine of Annie, the Earth Mother, stood abandoned. No one had entered it in years. Not since the old priest died whispering riddles about invisible men and cursed journeys. The shrine was hidden behind thick vines and guarded by silence. Nonye stepped inside barefoot. The ground was cold, the air thick with age and secrets. In the center of the shrine lay a circle of sacred ash, a ritual floor where truth had no place to hide. Maman Kata handed Nonye a calabash. "Pour the oil." Nonye obeyed, letting the oil form a ring around the ash. Then she stepped back. "Now we call," Maman Kata said. With a voice like smoke, she chanted in the ancient tongue. The air trembled. A shape began to form in the ash. Footprints. One, then another, then more, all leading inward, but none leading out. Nonye gasped. They were not hers, nor Maman Kata's. They were older, frozen in time. Then the ash began to hiss, and a strange voice echoed through the shrine. She remembers. Maman Kata grabbed Nonye's wrist. "That's him," she whispered. "The one who killed your mother." The calabash cracked open in Nonye's hand. And in that moment, she knew the man with clean feet was coming back. Nonye didn't return home immediately. Instead, she wandered to the old storehouse where her mother used to keep her letters, beads, and woven wrappers. The place had been untouched for years. Dust and cobwebs claimed every corner, but Nonye felt drawn to it, as if something inside still remembered her. She opened the carved wooden box at the back of the hut. The one with her mother's initials burned into its lid. Oh, and inside were faded wrappers to silver bangles, and a bundle of old letters wrapped in red thread. She unrolled them slowly, eyes scanning the delicate handwriting. At first, they were ordinary love notes, messages about market visits, dreams of marriage. But then she found one written in a different tone. The ink had smudged from age, but the words were still readable. "My beloved, I see what you are. I saw your footprints vanish in the shrine. You walk, but you do not belong here. My love for you fights with my fear. What are you really? Why does the earth not know your steps? If anything happens to me, I beg the earth to tell my daughter the truth." The signature was her mother's. Nonye clutched the letter to her chest, her throat tightening. Maman Kata appeared in the doorway, eyes heavy with knowing. "Your mother loved him, even after she discovered what he was. She tried to forgive a man who didn't leave dust," Nonye said, trembling. "Yes, but you must not make the same mistake." "But what if I already have?" Maman Kata froze. "What are you saying?" Nonye whispered. "The traveler who passed last week, the one with dusty feet." Maman Kata's voice dropped to a whisper. "Not all dust is real, Nonye." And suddenly, the truth stung like smoke in her lungs. He had arrived quietly. No horse, no drums, no flamboyant entrance, just a knapsack over his shoulder and feet thick with what looked like the Yumukwi earth. Nonye remembered the way the dust clung to his heels like it belonged there. He had asked for water and thanked her with eyes that didn't wander. Unlike the others, he hadn't tried to impress, and yet something about him felt too perfect. His name was Chika. He said he was a wanderer, a man searching for where he truly belonged. He stayed at the edge of the village, in the abandoned potter's hut, helping old men repair roofs and guiding children across the stream. The villagers liked him. Even Nonye felt her guard soften, which frightened her more than anything. So she decided to test him. One morning, while Chika was helping the blacksmith carry charcoal, Nonye followed him, barefoot, all the way to the forest edge. She watched him walk the narrow path through the red dust. But something was off. His feet seemed dusty, yes, but no footprints remained. Not even one. She blinked, looked again. Nothing. A gust of wind stirred the leaves, and her heart dropped. She remembered the letter, the shrine, the whisper. She remembers. That night, she went to the potter's hut. Chika sat outside, sharpening a stick, his face calm beneath the moonlight. "I need to see something," she said. He smiled. "My feet," she nodded. He stretched them out, slowly. They were dusty, dry, cracked, but when she reached out to touch them, the dust rubbed off like powder, leaving behind something smooth. Too smooth. She looked up, fear in her eyes, and he asked softly, "What did your mother see before she died?" Nonye staggered back, her breath trapped in her chest. Chika rose slowly, not as a man startled by confrontation, but like someone who had been expecting this moment for centuries. The silence between them thickened, until even the crickets dared not chirp. "I asked you a question," he said, stepping forward. "What did your mother see?" Nonye clenched her fists. She saw footprints disappear into sacred ash, footprints that did not belong to the living. Chikir's eyes glinted under the moonlight. "And what do you think she did with that truth?" "She tried to warn people," Nonye whispered, "and you silenced her." He chuckled, not cruelly, but with a sadness that sounded older than the trees. "I didn't kill her, Nonye. I loved her. But love can be dangerous when it exposes what should remain hidden." He reached into his bag and pulled out a small calabash, sealed with cowries and dry blood markings. "She gave this to me the night she found out. She said it would protect our child, if she ever bore one." Nonye's voice broke. "She was pregnant," Chika nodded. "But the curse does not allow legacy. It consumes it." He extended the calabash toward her. "Break it, and you'll see. The truth is inside." With trembling hands, Nonye smashed it against a rock. It shattered, with a strange hiss, releasing a faint green smoke. Inside lay a folded cloth, stained like the one Nonye had. But this one held something more, a small charm, carved from bone, shaped like a footprint. Mom and Kotal appeared behind them, gasping. That charm, it was meant for the unborn child, to guard her from the clean-footed ones. Nonye stared at it. Her mother had tried to protect her, even from beyond the grave. And Chika, he wasn't just a stranger. He was a survivor of a love that fate forbade. The next morning, the entire village buzzed with whispers. Word had spread that Nonye had been seen with the traveler again. But what truly stirred fear was the scent of burning herbs that floated from Mom and Kotta's compound. The kind of smell that only rose when forbidden rituals were being prepared. Inside, Nonye sat before a circle of chalk and ash. The charm carved like a footprint rested on a white cloth before her, surrounded by dried leaves and red stones. Mama Kotta, now visibly weakened from last night's revelations, prepared the last piece, a bowl of spring water. Water reveals what dust hides, she murmured, her voice like wind passing through trees. We must wash his feet, truly. Let the earth speak. Chika stood outside, calm. If this is what it takes, I will do it. Nonye led him into the ritual circle. She knelt, her hands trembling as she dipped them into the cold water. Then, slowly, deliberately, she began to wash his feet. The dust smeared away like cheap paint. And that's when she saw it. His skin was too smooth, too perfect. No ridges, no heel lines, no evidence of journey. Mom and Kotta gasped. He's one of them. But Nonye interrupted, eyes locked on Chikia's face. But something is different. Chika knelt beside her. I was once like them. But I broke away. Your mother showed me love, enough to make me crave dust again. He pulled out a second charm from under his tunic. She gave me this before she died. Said it would guide me to the one who could finish her fight. Nonye blinked back tears. Why didn't you tell me? Because, he said, those who wash too much often hide what they are. But I wanted to be seen, truly seen, Mama. Kotta's voice rose. Then dust you shall earn, but it must be chosen by her. All eyes turned to Nonye. Her decision would either break the curse or invite it deeper. The whole village gathered at the clearing by the Udala tree. Word had traveled faster than fire. Nonye, the girl who watched feet, was to make her final choice. Suitors had come and gone. Kings had tried. But today, she stood before the gods, a charm in one hand, and Chikia's dusty feet before her. Mom and Kotta stood beside her, cloaked in her final strength. The air was heavy with silence, as if even the earth waited. Nonye stepped into the center of the ritual circle, her heart steady. I was born with a mother's fear buried in my chest, she said aloud. Fear of clean feet, fear of deception, fear of silence. She looked at Chika. But I've also seen your pain. I've watched your struggle to belong. You could have hidden, but you walked toward the truth. Chika knelt, not in weakness, but surrender. I want to belong to the earth again, to love and leave footprints, real ones. Nonye turned to the gathered elders and villagers. The curse lives only when we honor perfection above truth. Today, I choose the man who wants dust. Who earns it? She pressed the charm, the carved footprint, into Chikia's hand. A gust of wind swept through the circle. The earth beneath him darkened. His feet cracked, the lines of journey finally appearing. The charm glowed. then faded into ash. Mom and Cotter wept. He has returned. The drums erupted. Not for royalty, not for tradition, but for truth. Nonye turned and kissed Chika, her hands gripping his newly scarred heels. She had not just married a man, she had married dust. And in doing so, she ended a curse. From that day on, girls in Umukwi didn't just ask for names. They asked to see the feet, because now they understood.